Okay, everyone, just as a reminder, this is a public meeting of the Berlin Energy Committee. Go ahead and calling it to order at 4:06. A reminder to everybody on the call, we will be recording this meeting and it will be posted on YouTube. So make sure that you're aware that your likeness and your words will live on forever on the internet. So fair warning that this is a publicly accessible document and it is being recorded. So with that, given that we have quite a few people from the outside, Amy, I'm just going to go ahead and kind of jump over our normal record keeping, like minutes and stuff, and
Yep.
just get into the main discussion here. We can
Okay.
clean that up later. The primary agenda item for today is this is a planning meeting. We wanted to bring on Weston and Sampson and just talk through kind of a high level vision of what we want to accomplish with their partnership. I think that National Grid, I never got a confirmation that they were able to make this time, so we'll set up another time with them um,
Okay.
going forward. So let's just kind of lay out the objectives for today. I would very much like to understand how Weston and Sampson can help us kind of take our efforts forward. We've done pretty well. Not to pat ourselves on the back too much, but we have managed to meet our commitments under the Green Communities program. We have managed to do several significant projects. We did manage to just recently get a large scale program grant application in for the latest round of Green Communities to do school, do heat pumps at the school. We have Omid here, who's our energy fellow. We've joined a group of other communities to bring Weston and Sampson in. So we're to a good point to start discussing what's next. And from a high level standpoint, what's next for us is to take the step to go from a green communities program to a climate leaders community. And I've sent some email conversations around to I think all the participants and just kind of high level saying that I'm mostly doing the recap here for anybody who would join us later. But I'd like to open the floor, I guess, to Weston and Sampson right now and kind of get your initial reactions on both the email that I sent out with the high level view and how you see your role and how you think you can um, progress the town of Berlin's efforts, both as a green community and as potential a climate leader community.
Yeah, thank you for having us here. I'm Rebecca with Weston and Sampson, and our team. We got Billy Lefave and Zoe Leo. And I will say Billy and Zoe did a lot of the reporting, so they're a little bit more familiar with all everything you have done, more so than I am. So I think you've done a great thing, some great progress so far. And you know, if you're looking to do the climate leaders, that's definitely something we'd want to help at and see kind of where you need support on that, whether it's at town meeting if you need to prepare any documentation to kind of help the public with adopting the opt-in stretch code. I know that's probably the biggest hurdle. So we can definitely support there with if you need support at the meeting or prior to the meeting with any documentation for prep. And I think really for next year, my question would be, are you looking for any additional grant funding or any audits and any new buildings? And maybe I'll pass it over to Billy, who's more familiar, like I said, with what you've done so far. But I think we'd be looking to see where, uh, what other projects we might be able to do at the schools and kind of where we can help get more funding for you.
Yeah, and I can piggyback off of that. So thank you, Rebecca. And as Rebecca mentioned, I want to introduce myself. I'm Billy Lefave, working with Weston Sampson, sustainability specialist and environmental scientist. And just as Rebecca mentioned, we do want to be focusing on the school, but we understand that in the municipality level of Berlin, the school is only one building out of the portfolio. And so we want to ensure that we're also focusing on some of the other municipal buildings. So we've identified on our end through the help of the committee here and through the MEI data, which is accessible online, that focusing on the public library, the Bullard House, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and the 1870 Town Hall are also some priorities. And it's also been noted that especially the public library, which have been no recent projects have been taken there, all of these buildings do qualify for Green Communities Fund through the Green Communities Program, which is a biannual basis. And we are working on our end to identify more grant opportunities, such as the Municipal Energy Technical Assistance Grants or META grants that provide up to $15,000 worth of funding for technical assessments of buildings, which can better their grant competitive in other applications. So we've been working, I've been working on the side as well with Omid to help identify some of these buildings, which has been extremely helpful. So thank you, Omid. And yeah, we're here to kind of push some of these along, create a strong pipeline of projects so that when these grants do come about, we know which projects are here, which are shovel ready, and ones we go forward with.
That's a really key point. To address a couple of the comments that were just made. I do believe that the greatest hurdle to achieving climate leader status is the adoption of the specialized code. We anticipate both resistance that is active and also resistance that is passive. And what I mean, the difference between that is there are going to be people that actually object to the code, and there are going to be people that object to change because they don't understand it. So we're going to have to surmount both of those, as well as turning out the people who are advocates for this program in order to be successful at town meeting. So we're going to have to put together an education campaign as well as clearly define why we're doing this and how it benefits this town and how it doesn't necessarily hurt development or individuals. And that's going to be a tall order because nothing is free, right? There are always winners and losers in all things, but in general, this program largely promotes winners. Most people benefit from this change, especially long term, either depending on what your viewpoint is from an efficiency standpoint or simply an environmental one or reducing greenhouse gas emissions. All of those are worthy reasons, and I think we really need to double down on it. So that is clearly one branch where we're going to need support with, I don't want to say a marketing message, but that's kind of what it is. It is both educational, it is how to successfully get this information into the community and turn doubters or agnostic, unsure people into supporters. The second thing I wanted to seize on is the shovel-ready project funnels. That is huge for me. It's both professionally in my work environment that this is big, but it's also critically important that we have this set up because we don't want to do this hurry up panic. There's a grant application due and we need to get a ton of it done in a week, which is basically what we did this last time. It wasn't pretty, but it got across the finish line. I don't think any of us want to do that on a regular basis. Secondly, by having these shovel-ready grants available to us, it makes it easier for us to act when grant opportunities come out of the blue. We've already seen this with National Grid telling us that, hey, good news, there's a grant that, I don't know, I'll be facetious for a moment here. There's a grant who specifically targets community libraries. Wouldn't it be great if we had a sequence of projects lined up for our community library that we could just drop into a grant template and send it out the door? That's kind of the easy button, to use, I guess, Staples marketing, that I'd like to get to. I'd like to be able to socialize this broadly with our partners at Weston Sampson, our community members, members of our government, as well as National Grid. So everybody knows what Berlin's trying to do. Everybody knows what money we have available and what money we don't have available and what grants may apply. So that's really huge. And I'd like to get down to nuts and bolts with it. Detailed grant ready proposals that we could go through. Do we need every single bid done, every I dotted? No, but we really do need to know what we're doing with a fair amount of detail so that we can pull the trigger quickly.
Yeah, that's not to interject here, Tim, that's a great point. And
No, please.
we can work on our end. The two biggest things that I think are always the biggest kickers when it comes to grants that lead us to rush is the fact that there are no technical assessments or there's no quotes or active quotes. And sometimes it's the conjunction of both. We can
Yep.
work to identify those priority buildings. You know, we'll work on our end with through Excel sheets and whatnot to kind of build a portfolio and understand like if these grants come across, say it's example to your example, the library, you know, do we have that assessment? Yes. Do we have a quote? Do we have that specific project that leads us to not rush where, like you said, at the last minute, we're just dotting the T's, excuse me, dotting the I's and crossing the T's. So you can definitely work on that. And I did want to speak on your point to the specialized stretch code. Is that something Omid and I did have a brief conversation about? Is that a lot of times it is that hesitance and people are that scared of change. We've had some issues with some other municipalities where they had the same feelings, but in the end, leading into the climate leaders, it does open up a big vault of money for these communities to really get deep into energy retrofits and some more decarbonization projects, and it does end up benefiting the town. The DOER in Massachusetts is well aware that there's not a lot of information right now on the long-term impacts of the specialized stretch code, and they're working on getting some of that information. So we've been working with the DOER as well to get that. And one of the biggest things that I'm trying to get is full payback calculations on, you know, example buildings that have been built to the specialized stretch code or just the stretch code or no code, no stretch code at all. So we're working on getting that because if we can display that to residents and members of key stakeholders to the town of Berlin, that's when more data can flow. And again, these are to only large scale new developments and large renovations. So they don't apply to everyone. But in the future, it does create more long-term success, which I know everyone here is aware of. So we can work on educating on that.
That's a huge thing because there is a lot of information and misinformation out there. And this is complex stuff. You know, I'm been in this for a while now. It's my second community as a green community member. And I will fully admit to you that when Omid gave his presentation, I really had to stop and think about that. I had to think about how the impact would be. I had to think about a lot of it. And we had our select board liaison on the call. We had others that were not as deeply versed at that, and they glazed. It's just like, how do I explain this to somebody who has no idea? How do I answer the question? You're coming to take my gas stove away. No, that's not what we're dealing with at all. You're going to make me put an EV charger in my home, even though I have no intention of ever having an EV car. No, that's not what we're really talking about either. So there's going to be those obstacles, and we need to identify them and have crisp responses for them. Just my 2 cents, speaking as a resident here, I have seen many a good idea go down in town meeting, not because it wasn't a good idea, not even that it wasn't that the person was prepared, but a member of the community was able to sow reasonable doubt. And at that point, it just dies because the default answer of a relatively uninformed voter to reasonable doubt is to vote no. So that's what we're up against. We have to get them to yes. So another thing, yeah, we'll just stay there. I think that's a full stop moment right there. That is our challenge with Climate Leader. I know that we've already got a draft policy that has been adopted already that just needs a little bit of tweaking to go EV first, or zero emission vehicle first. That's already in place. We just need to bring it up to the standard of the Climate Leader community. We already are a green community in good standing. The plan, Omid has put a pretty good chunk in that, and I think that is clearly something we'd be looking to you with Weston and Sampson is to finalize that and to bring it into something that is in a position to be submitted and defensible. But I think really the major hurdle we have right now, and we've got to pick our time, and we've got to set a clear, this is the town meeting that we're going for it on. So we're going to have to we're going to have to do that. I did want to address some of the projects as a whole. We've talked about it in this forum. We've talked about other. Clearly, the school is our big white whale, right? This is the big one that we're trying to land. Um, hopefully, no Captain Ahab references here with Moby Dick, but it is a very large project. It is a very expensive project. Hopefully, if we get this first bite at it with the Green Community Grant, we can start to learn what we're getting ourselves into and make a difference in the community. I think it is fair to say that for us to be 100% successful in that building, it is a prerequisite for us to become a climate leader community because of the funding and opportunities that it unlocks associated. Even if we're able to do supplemental grants that are specifically targeted towards schools, I don't believe that's going to be enough to 100% close that gap. And I would also say that I don't believe that the community nor our budget has anywhere close to enough slack in it to self-fund. So it is a must do for us. To my knowledge, Berlin is not in what was Kelly Brown's term for it? The millionaires, the $1 million club. We have not approached the limiting factor of the green communities yet, but we are starting to get close. And part of my desire and part of the reason, and Amy, please speak up during any of this. You're a member here. But part of the reason why I've been working with Omid and we've been discussing it in our calls too, to look at these alternate buildings is because I don't want Berlin Memorial to suck all of the air and all of the funding out of the room so that we have low-hanging fruit that we never get to because we have this massive program that takes all of our time, effort, and money. I'll pause there for any comments. I've been doing a little bit of a monologue here. Okay. Let's talk about the library for a second. And one of the reasons why Omid and I in our one-on-one discussed this, I even took a field trip during our last one-on-one and went down there. This is basically a home. It is a large home. I think it's 3,200 square feet, 3,300 square feet. So it is bigger than my house, but it is not a school that is heated and cooled like a home. And I see opportunity there. I think that we have a lot going on at that building as they discuss its future, its renovations, what they can do. We got over a very large hurdle with septic that was making it extremely difficult at that building to gain a public water supply status, and otherwise we've solved that. Excuse me. Victoria, the director over there, she was very excited to get a new door, which was allocated by town meeting like 10 years ago. So it has been chronically overlooked for improvements. And I don't want to say town-wide, because that's not my place, but I will say it's been overlooked by the Energy Committee, without a doubt. We've done nothing there. I'm not even sure we've done a full assessment there. They're cooling that property with 3 window units that you could pick up from Home Depot that are max 2,000 BTU units. And they're permanently installed with some plywood and a little bit of Owens Corning between them and the elements. And I'm relatively certain that we're losing a certain amount of efficiency around those windows where it's located. That is a short dollar, easy fix to look at that building for a VRF system or something that is relatively low number of wall units that could provide supplemental heating. We don't even necessarily need to pull out the existing oil there, but if we could get to the point where we're not using it as much, that's a win. And if we don't need it at all, then we can look at getting rid of it. But for the time being, let's get responsible cooling and bend the curve a little bit on the greenhouse gas emissions that we're using by using electric whenever possible. Our town barn, for example, is relatively new. It's just needs some polishing. to bring it up to probably the potential that it could have. We have long-term needs at the municipal office. We've thrown a lot of money at that building. As recently as our last grant where we've upgraded the building controls, but there are some fundamental flaws that need to be corrected. And we are never going to get a truly comfortable building unless we start looking at supplementing with some point heating and cooling so that the individual rooms aren't necessarily subject to long runs with air handlers that drop off, and by the time they get to the end of the run, that's either freezing cold or terribly warm. All those things we have. So those are small incremental projects that we should be looking at with an eye towards electrification. Beyond that, most of our buildings fall off very rapidly. It's the school, the municipal office building, and MEI data supports this, is the vast majority of our building generated energy use. The Bullard House, which is a historical structure, which isn't even really heated right now, of course, is not much, but there's plans of making that a more functional building. You've got the library, which is staffed. It is community access. That is something we do. We have 1870, which we've touched a little bit, but it's a highly historic building. It's finding its way in the overall scheme of things of the community of what its purpose is going to be. So we have that we need to work through. But all of these buildings that I'm rattling off are heated by old oil furnaces. In the case of the Bullard House, really old. I don't know what the vintage of the library is, but I suspect it's pretty old too. So all those things, it's kind of like the theory behind this is incremental improvements. I don't think we have the money or the bandwidth to do big rip and replace projects. We need to stage this so that we do small incremental improvements that add up to bigger things.
Yeah, I'm glad that you just framed it in that regard. And I wanted to touch specifically on the library. And I think that this would be a key project to even initiate. I'm looking right now on your MEI, the library. And for those of viewers watching who are members of the town of Berlin, the library has the second largest EUI in the town. And EUI stands for energy use intensity, or how much energy is being used per square foot. And the library has the second largest in the town behind the Berlin Memorial School, which is typical of schools to be high on the EUI list. But for a small building such as that, while it might not be using the most energy in the town, it's definitely a lot of use per square foot. And to Tim, what you just said about with the window AC units, that makes sense. So we could use some of the existing audits and research, or possibly get a technical assistance grant to do a full study of how we can convert the HVAC equipment at that building. Because another great thing is that that's a community space that every member of the community is going to be in, or has the ability to be in, rather than a town office, rather than the school. You know, your children are going to the school and you might visit the school here and there. But like you said, the library is a community space where people are going to be visiting. It could be a showcase project. And we always emphasize that with these types of projects is a lot of public information. You know, having maybe possibly a dashboard, or releasing, like, you know, within our first few months of this retrofit, we've saved X amount in town dollars. Really gets people excited about these projects and shows that it's attainable. And the incentives do a lot for old oil burners to get rid of those. The state definitely wants to get rid of those old oil burners and switch them out with some HVAC. And with this small house style, you know, heating system, I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's more easy than, you know, like you said, a larger retrofit. So attacking these through those lenses, I think, is going to be critical. And if we wanted to start with one of those, you know, non-school buildings, then library would be an important one, especially because it's a fully staffed building, and you're probably going to get a better, you know, review from people in that building with an improved system.
One thing we haven't discussed, and I haven't actually put it in any writing that career. The other thing we need to think of is operations. We have a very small department that is tasked with a lot. We do a lot of vendor support. If we can make it so they don't have to worry about this stuff, that is time that they can be working on things that they do need to worry about. Like if we need to have a member of our facilities and highway team in the middle of winter respond to a no heat outage because we're dealing with an old oil furnace, rather than plowing snow off the community's roads, that is a huge opportunity cost. Now, that would never happen. They would, of course, prioritize public safety first, but that also means that whatever building doesn't have heat, and it's closed, or it's potentially at risk of freezing pipes, or they have to drain the water or something like that. So anything we can do to make our staff's life easier is important, and it can't be overstated or understated as a benefit. Um, I'm going to pause here for a second. Like I said, I've been doing a little bit of a monologue through here. I want to kind of turn the floor over to Amy and Kristen. Is there anything that you're hearing here that you don't like? Is there anything that you're hearing here or haven't heard that you think we should be talking about?
I will let Amy go first as a member of the committee if she would like to, and then I can follow up.
Okay, I found it. Everything sounded right on, like the same things that we've kind of been discussing. And I believe it was in Omid's plan was to do the community, try to get the community stuff kind of later, like in the once we get into the climate leader. But other than that, I think the library absolutely would be 100% grateful to get some of that taken care of. And yeah, everything sounded, I didn't not hear anything that we've talked about before.
Okay. So no big angst on your part, is what I'm taking
No
away.
big, nope. Everything
Okay.
sounds the school stuff now, and then trying to get things ready to just have them be able to go out as grants come up.
Right on. Okay. Thank you. Kristen, go ahead.
Yes. So, in all honesty, Tim and the Energy Committee have really been flying solo. I unfortunately, as Tim mentioned earlier, just have a very limited amount of time and a pretty big backlog at this point of projects that are going on. But I believe these projects related to energy are extremely important. I've worked on energy projects in the past, would love, in all honesty, to work more on them. But one of the reasons that we applied for the CELTS Fellowship and the Energy Manager Grant is to be able to help with some of these things. And then, Tim and I can kind of jump in, where questions, concerns, decisions need to be made, because Tim gives very generously of his time and he has been supervising Omid. I can't say I've done much in that vein myself, although of course I would like to, but I think being able to have someone who's looking at the comprehensive picture and helping move us forward in various areas. Obviously, the Climate Leader Program, very important. And Omid gave me a very impressive presentation on the buildings and the engineering analysis that he did based on our energy audits from our facilities study last week, which was fantastic and eye-opening. And I plan to take it to the select board and get some ideas on where we should move forward, in those areas. But I feel like there's so much opportunity and potential here, and to kind of have, Weston and Sampson capturing the broad scope of what we are working on, as Tim mentioned, and then maybe helping us sort of prioritize where we need to be and working with Omid. I've felt more excited about being able to get some of this work done than I have previously. So, that's just kind of where we stand, I think on our end from a staffing capacity, because there's just, I think I mentioned before, not trying to sound like I'm complaining, but I am wearing 5 hats right now with 1 assistant. So it would just be really, really helpful to have that input. And it sounds like the projects that Tim talked about are, I'm in agreement with, and it sounds like we're very much moving in the right direction.
Good. Excellent. Thank you, Kristen. Omid, I want to give you a chance to speak. We've talked a lot. You've talked with William, you've talked to others. Where are you at? What are your thoughts?
Okay, thank you for giving me this opportunity. First, you, Kristen, and getting me involved with these projects in the town. So we have lots of things that can be done in the town, I think. As you mentioned, so like municipal office, a library, and Bullard House, other buildings like so we have around 9-10 buildings, I think, in the town. And so some projects have been done for them. For example, for the municipal building, I was Kristen sent me those information about the BAS system update that has been done by Guardian company. So they did a lot on that project. So the BAS system is updated, as I see. And based on the Bureau Veritas energy audit, I see that there are still things remaining, and they should be done for the municipal office to be completely energy efficient, like changing some lamps or changing old furnaces or systems like that. So the BAS system should work fine, but actually the system that are working under this BAS system should be updated, I think. So this is one of the challenges we still have in the municipal office. As you mentioned, so for the library, we don't have any heating, a good proper cooling system. So it's not enough. So it's old and not enough for the building. Also, Bullard's house is under construction right now, and it should be first weatherized and then should be actually energy efficient with some projects for the HVAC systems, for the water heating systems like that. Also, I think we haven't talked about the vehicle fleet in the town. We should talk about them too. So I saw Amy sent that email from the information about the vehicles. Thank you, Amy, about that. I should take a look at it to see, for example, what we have and what we should do. I know that we need to build one EV charging station in the town. This is one of the plans, actually. So I'm not sure what should we do for that, and what's the plan to continue that. And also, yeah, I think the community outreach is one of the most important aspects in the town. So we should talk to people, as I know. So the senior population of the town is objecting many new projects, maybe because they're skeptical about many things that can be good in the town. So they're right. I think that they don't know about the benefits of the project. So it is part of the responsibility of all of us to work on that, I think. And also, I think we need a I don't know if we can do this or not. We need a plan for different entities and peoples and people and companies and other maybe vendors to for managing the projects in the town. So we have different companies, like we have, or like we have CMRPC, we have MRPC, we have National Grid, we have Western and Samsung, and also we have a Health Initiative fellow here, also town committee, energy committee. So with the collaboration with these entities, we can actually do the projects. We need a plan, I think, for example, to say, for example, what should be done by this, what shouldn't be done by this, and to just allocate tasks to people. And I think with that, we can have a better plan for the future to go forward and to get closer to the final goal, which is joining climate leader community, I think, at this step right now. And after joining that, so it is the start. This is the beginning. So we should apply for many grants. Many grants are available. We should apply for them. We have many. We should run many projects. Projects that are not feasible right now will be feasible at that moment. And this is a hard thing we should do. We should consider. So this is what I'm thinking right now.
Yeah, and that's a perfect segue, Omid, to kind of where I want to go next, which is
Yeah.
next steps. What do we want to do? What you just described is a project plan. It is a formalized PMP style project plan where we list our resources, we list our needs, we put it on a timeline, we put it on our list our gating items, our constraints, our funding, all of that. And I guess that brings me to kind of the point. Weston, Sampson, Rebecca, William, Zoe, I think that's what we need from you. I think what we need is organization and a professional view of how do we get all of our ducks in a row and how do we fund them with the jackets that they need to go into winter. So we have lots of ideas we've executed, but what we've executed on has been frankly kind of haphazard. And we need to get to the point where we can lay out a 3 to 5 year plan, be able to have good detail on how we're going to get there with some assumptions on what grants we would get, contingency planning if we suddenly get a windfall from another grant that we didn't expect, and be able to articulate that to people like our finance committee, our community members, our capital planning team, our professional staff and highway and facilities, so that we don't have people working at cross purposes with one another. One of the key things that we have that we've done okay managing, but it's been reactive, now proactive, is each department has ideas that they want to implement. And the example being public safety with the barracks and the work that was done by our local tech school. We did fine, but I wouldn't say that was like completely integrated into a cohesive whole. There was a lot of scrambling associated with that. There was a lot of, wait a second, did you consider this? We need to get past that. So what we desperately need more than anything else is a project plan that makes sense. Can you help us with that?
Yeah, so that is part of the grant, the deliverables for the grant. So they label it as an energy management plan. So we want to look at the energy management assessment, so kind of where the town is currently with energy, looking at greenhouse, and this is for year 1, 2, and 3 of the grant, and we can build on it as we go. For the first year might be kind of more of a draft as we kind of just be able to have a month to do this. Initiate the greenhouse gas emissions inventory, list all the incentive funding available, identify, prioritize, and recommend specific opportunities for to improve energy efficiency, HVAC, other systems. So I think, and with that, also looking at the building portfolio. So I think that energy management plan, we can tailor it to really what you need, but look at the building portfolio, look at the projects that you've done, look at the projects you're looking to do, prioritize how to fund it, and then also, what the goals are. So the emissions inventory, and setting greenhouse gas reductions goals. And I think that'll kind of help along the line too of the climate leader too. And like I said earlier, we do have a internal graphics department, and we have folks that are really great at making things look palatable to people. So I think we can work with them in our company and make this energy management plan. It'd probably be a lot of information, but try to make it as easy to understand for the different departments and the different groups and stakeholders that are going to be looking at it. So that is part of what we're working on. We don't have a lot of time left in year one, so we'll do what we can. And we want to continue working with you for year 2 and 3 and really build that out for, like you said, a 3 to 5 year plan. So if the grant ends, when the grant ends, you can still, utilize it going forward.
So given that, time is ticking, right? What is a reasonable set of near-term milestones that we can get? This seems like a large project in itself, just putting this together. What can we do to have periodic check-ins? What kind of process can we put in place so that you're not waiting on something to keep moving forward? How can we best enable this, and when is a good time for us to do regular progress updates and how it's proceeding?
I would say maybe if we time it, Billy, with quarterly reporting where we stand, we just submitted the quarterly report. So we have our initial snapshot of the buildings where they stayed right now. So I think either, going forward, maybe prior to submitting that, we can go over, make sure that we have all the information correct, and kind of see what the next goals might be for the next quarter. There's year 1, year 2, and year 3 work plans, but I think if we look at it more on a quarterly basis, I think that'll help move things along. And I mean, we're open to email anytime too, and we can touch base if we're missing any information that we need. I think the biggest thing is just making sure, we have all the data that we have, and I think, so far we have a decent amount of information from you all.
Yeah.
Billy, any additional thoughts?
Just about to agree. I think aligning it with that quarterly basis, obviously we can meet more than, quarterly. I know there's going to be stuff coming in here and there. I'll just send emails if I need information. Like last week, I just needed one piece of information. I emailed Omid. He got back to me right away. So it was really helpful. So keeping that constant communication pipeline, I think, is important, but definitely around the quarterly planning is going to be where I think most of our questions are going to be rising. But I also just wanted to mention too, that in the time being while we're waiting for grants, Omid, you were mentioning some like lighting projects as well. National Grid, excuse me, Mass Save got rid of their lighting incentives for everyone except municipalities. And so it's important to while that is still there and that those incentives are aimed at probably going away within the next few years because Mass Save was so successful with the lighting that there's not many incentives for it anymore because so many people have done it. It would be kind of a nice low-hanging fruit in the time being to get a lighting inventory of what we need, and we can get a quick audit on that and those in there to just save money on the side. I just wanted to add that in before we got in, but yeah, creating those energy management plans, it's going to take us some time. It's going to be pretty comprehensive, but I think we're in a great space. The town of Berlin has done an excellent job already at getting, several audits in, sometimes more than one for one building. And with the lower municipal inventory, it's easier to spend more time on these buildings, which is going to be really helpful for us.
So how can we get progress up? How can we get updates on your progress as you execute against this plan?
I'd say that we can send you drafts every quarter along with the requirements on us. As Rebecca mentioned, by the end of this year, it's going to be a pretty rough outline of what everything is going to be. But we're also going to be working with your regional planning commissions as well because they have a lot of resources that they've already had. So if a quarterly basis is satisfactory to you, I think that would stick to those dates. So it's pretty consistent with the MEM requirements as well.
Do you have a structural outline or kind of a straw man for this report, what it would look like? Is that something that you could share?
Right now, we do not. The initial reporting for MEM was quite comprehensive, so we're more focusing on the building of, they have a few templates for us to fill out on the actual building portfolio and not, but our next steps was to work on the greenhouse gas calculations and assessment and also the outline of that report.
How are our brethren communities progressing? Are they in a similar space? Is there anything that we can do to have some certain economies of scale of both your time as well as, take advantage of that? Is there anything we can do together?
Yeah, I mean, the MRPC group included you in North Brookfield along with Athol and Royalston. And the owner is not in Green Community North Brookfield, so they're going to be working a little bit more on the ground up, or excuse me, we're going to be working a little bit with them, a little bit more on the ground up. I'd say everyone else, Athol, Royalston, Berlin are up pretty on the same page because they've had a lot of help from their regional planning committees. Um, in regards to collaboration, it's pretty limited just because, the buildings are a lot different and whatnot, but everyone
Okay.
seems to be on the same page. We're doing a similar approach with them. Athol and Royalston work together hand in hand. Royalston is a very small town of around 1,200 people, and Athol is a little bit larger. And they work a lot hand in hand. So, in regards to them, it's basically the same thing that we're doing. They also have an energy committee that we're meeting with regularly, and most of their municipal projects are through them.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is that you're still in the initial fact-finding stage. You have a near-term deliverable of starting to do some calculations based off the MEI data, specifically in the greenhouse gas emissions area. Once that information has been organized and the appropriate, I guess, calculations have been calculated, that's when you start moving into a project management plan. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay, so the next, I wouldn't expect, I'd likely, and we are in November now, end of the quarter is December, people start getting scarce real soon here. So a reasonable time frame for a significant update from you would be sometime in the first quarter of 26.
I would say so. Correct me if
Okay.
I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I think we could start, drafting and have the outline and plugging in the information that we have so far for the energy management plan. I think, that's a good goal for us to really have kind of the first draft and outline for that done by the end of the year. We do want to pull that, start pulling that together. But yeah, I think it'll build upon, and we'll get some more information, definitely in the beginning of next year.
Okay, so here's why I'm pressing on that. I just want to make sure that we don't have distant large milestones that are satisfied, and then we look at it and say, yeah, that's cool and all, but you totally missed the point, or we didn't like that, or that's not what we want to do. I want to make sure that we're having rapid communication so that we can adjust and make sure that when we do have those large milestones at the end, that we're on the money when it happens.
Absolutely.
Okay. I think that's the bulk of what I was hoping to achieve today. Are there any additional questions or thoughts or anything that walk-ons that people would like to bring up, or any new business?
Not on my end, Tim.
Okay, so let's recap quickly and then we'll go ahead and close the meeting. So what we accomplished today is that we talked about an overall vision for the community. We wanted to ensure that we're not putting all of our effort strictly into the school and leaving other municipal buildings hanging. We believe that there are opportunities that are simple and fairly low-hanging fruit in places like the library, specifically because that has one of the highest energy intensity metrics of all of our buildings in the town, primarily because we haven't touched it at all. We are going to be putting together a comprehensive project plan that is designed to capture both our desires and the steps necessary to get there. We're hoping to have at least a skeleton draft of what that will look like by the end of the year. Current activities are going on primarily in fact finding and data calculation to support that effort. And then we will be going forward with an iterative process through on a quarterly basis to refine that plan. In parallel, we didn't talk too much about it, but I think we're all in agreement. In parallel, we're going to be drafting, and this will be part of the comprehensive plan too, a mechanism in a marketing plan, an educational plan to get us across the finish line in our largest hurdle to becoming a climate leader community, which is specialized code adoption. That's kind of our 6-month go forward plan. And at some point, once we've probably achieved most of those things, we need to get serious about our vehicle inventory. We need to really look at the national grid study that was done. We need to talk about implementing a revised zero emission vehicle policy, especially before going into spring town meeting, which is typically when we do replace aging vehicles. And start knocking off these milestones necessary to be designated as a climate leader community. Does everybody agree with that? Is everybody on board with that's kind of our next steps and who has the ball on these?
Sounds like a great plan.
Okay. So with that, I will go ahead and entertain a motion to adjourn this public meeting. Amy?
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye with your name. Wysocki, aye.
Amy, I.
Okay, motion carries. The meeting is adjourned at 4:59.